today. We have been part of the great British Empire for 73 years. Our forefathers fought alongside Great Britain during World War I and World War II. And in fact, my grandfather, who was Postmaster General of British Somaliland Protectorate, was decorated, and so was my father, who was the most senior health professional in British Somaliland. Both were decorated for services to the Crown. My father had a British Empire Medal. Our sons died in battlefields alongside British sons, far away from our country. They fought not to defend Somaliland, but they fought alongside the British to defend a cause that we also believed in: freedom, justice, and democracy. Our independence was established through a proclamation by Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. It took place on the 26th of June 1960. Therefore, our sovereignty came about through a legal, majestic, and binding royal decree, while neighboring Somalia, La Somalia Italiana, was still under Italian rule at that time. This proves that Somaliland and our independence did not come through armed conflict or rebellion. It was not self-declared. It is not a fantasy. It's neither a country that has named itself Somaliland. We have had that name for over 150-something years. The size of Somaliland is not a splinter, is not a fragment. It is bigger than 18 African countries, size-wise. And it has a bigger population than another 18 countries in Africa. Therefore, it's not a splinter. And do I need to mention the countries that Somaliland is bigger? Senegal, Gambia, Rwanda, Burundi, the Comores, Cape Verde, and so on, and so on. Look it up. I verified it. Our existence as a sovereign state has a strong historical basis and continues to be today's reality. Somaliland was the first Somali country to become independent and the 12th independent African nation. We therefore hold seniority over the other 42 African countries who were still under colonial rule when our independence came about. And for some reason that is not known to me, these countries, 42 countries, who got their independence after my country, Somaliland, have been assigned the responsibility of determining the fate of my country, Somaliland. At independence, Somaliland became a member of the United Nations, and we were immediately recognized by 34 UN member states, including the 5 permanent states of the Security Council. 64 years later, since we gained our independence in 1960, we have neither resigned from our membership in the UN, nor given away our sovereignty to anybody. Somaliland still claims ownership of our independence and still claims ownership of our membership in the United Nations. In fact, it is former Italian Somalia who piggybacked on the existing UN membership of Somaliland when Somalia became independent a week after Somaliland. These are facts, and I would like you, ladies and gentlemen, to please verify them with us, for us, and for yourselves. The fact that Somaliland was an existing mother country to which Somalia united is also overlooked by the international community, who grants our former junior partner, Somalia, a de facto position of ownership and seniority over Somaliland, a position that it does not have. The fact is, Somalia does not legally own Somaliland, does not legally own a position, nor can Somaliland be considered a breakaway state, because Somalia, who we allowed to join us, neither owned or bought Somaliland, nor has annexed us through a military conquest. It is also worth mentioning, ladies and gentlemen, that the Act of Union, which would have formalized the unification of the two sovereign Somali states, was never ratified by the parliaments of the two countries. This makes the 31-year union between Somaliland and Somalia from 1960 to 1991 only an informal and turbulent partnership that eventually culminated in a brutal 10-year civil war until we separated in 1991 from a union which was never legally binding on either side. We all remember the union between Senegal and Gambia, which lasted 6 months. And we remember the union between Egypt and Syria, which lasted 3 years. Just as we did, these countries went into a voluntary union in good faith as sovereign states, as sovereign countries. When their union failed to satisfy the aspirations of their people, they separated without any punishment from the international community. Each country returned to its original name. Senegal returned to being Senegal again, Gambia being Gambia again, Egypt is Egypt, and Syria is Syria. The United Arab Republic was dissolved. Senegambia was dissolved. Now, sadly, Somaliland is being unjustly punished for doing exactly the same as these countries. We don't know why. Maybe it is for you, ladies and gentlemen, to tell us why, because there is no reason for it. We at least gave our union a much longer trial and only separated from Somalia after the military regime of the Somali dictator Siad Barre perpetrated war crimes and acts of genocide against our people. We withdrew from that union when government airplanes indiscriminately bombed our major cities. We withdrew from the union when tanks and heavy military artillery pounded civilian dwellings. We withdrew from that union when they flattened our cities, when they flattened schools, when they flattened hospitals, when they flattened mosques and 90% of our cities. During the 10-year civil war and 10 years of genocide and mass killings of civilians, the international community did absolutely nothing to stop the carnage of our people. Ladies and gentlemen, I often ask myself, where was democracy when thousands of women and children were being massacred? When over 500,000 became internally displaced? And when an additional million sought refuge and shelter in camps in Ethiopia, in Djibouti, in Yemen, and in your countries and in your shores. To this day, we keep discovering mass graves containing thousands and hundreds of human remains, many of them belonging to 3 years and 5 years and 6-year-old children. And I fail to see the importance of killing 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds. And I don't see the military justice of filling mass graves with the bodies of children and their mothers. We would like the international community, who believes in justice, who believes in democracy, to study that carnage. The UN has so far registered 100 mass graves. That's an unknown and uncounted thousands of bodies who have died for the simple crime of being human beings who wanted their peace, their freedom, their identity, and justice. Sadly, the international community chooses to reward the perpetrators of these war crimes with billions of your taxpayers' money. When Somalilanders, who are the victims, are being denied a fair hearing and a day in court. This is the closest that we have come to be given a hearing. 24 years after the massacres have made us separate from our neighbors, Somalia. After the liberation of Somaliland in 1991, the hard-won peace and stability that we enjoy today, because Somaliland is one of the most peaceful and stable countries, and if it were not, I would not be there. None of us would be there. We're all returnees from the diaspora. We're all retired civil servants, bankers, diplomats, United Nations civil servants, who return home to rebuild our country. And if Somaliland were not safe and peaceful, we would be in one of your countries as refugees. But we choose to go home. We chose to return to our country. We chose to start and initiate and encourage the reconstruction of our country. Somebody has to do it. The international community has denied us that support. We have become experts of self-help, of self-reliance, because we have had nobody else to rely on other than the limited resources that those few survivors have had. And we have now rebuilt our country through the shared determination and initiative of our men, women, and that of our traditional leaders. Unlike the 16 peace conferences that the international community has paid for and held for Somalia over the years, and which were all held in countries outside of Somalia, peace in Somaliland is totally homegrown and was brokered and funded entirely with our own resources. That is why peace and stability hold in Somaliland, because we wish it to hold. We paid for it ourselves. We chose peace, democracy, law, and order over lawlessness, like some of our neighbors have done. When it comes to peace conferences, of course we've had to hold peace conferences in Somaliland, but you never heard of them because they never came from your budgets. You never had to vote for them to release budgets for peace conferences in Somaliland. we put our meager resources together. And since we defeated the troops of Siad Barre, and we subsequently separated from Somalia in 1991, we have held a series of self-funded peace, reconciliation, and reconstructive conferences in Somaliland. The first conference was held in Berbera in February of 1991, when our traditional elders unanimously agreed to let bygones be bygones, and urged our people not to seek revenge, nor to have malice for any person from Somalia still living in Somaliland. Consequently, 10,000 Somalia troops that became stranded in Somaliland after the war were fed, sheltered, given precious water. A Somali who gives you water is giving you his or her life. We shared whatever we had with 10,000 troops, and not for 1 day or 2, but for 3 whole months. We protected those prisoners of war, and we negotiated a safe corridor through which we were able to escort them to return home to Somaliland, to their country, Somalia. The prisoners were not escorted by UNISOM or UN troops or international peacekeeping forces. They were protected and escorted home by our own troops, the troops of Somaliland. Now, this general amnesty holds in Somaliland to this day, and Somalilanders are proud to have a large number of laborers and merchants from Somalia living and working in Somaliland without any restrictions or fear for their lives. In fact, in my hospital, I have many patients from Somalia who we treat for free. We have many students in our colleges and university who study with us, with our students, with our youth. And why not? When I, as a Somalilander, was given permission to study in your countries and in your institutions of learning, when I was of a different color from your students and came from a different continent, I entered, applied to your institutions, got accepted, respected the regulations of that institution, and was given the opportunity to study alongside your children. Now, why would I, a Somalilander, deny a young student from neighboring Somalia who looks like me, who speaks more or less like the Somali that we speak, to study in my institutions, in my college, in my university, if they respect the laws and the regulations of my institutions? That's all I ask for. Get in with your pen and remain there with your dedication and your achievements. Why not? That's what Somalilanders are made of. We have, last Friday, I flew home, flew back to Somalia, 19 women who were flown from Mogadishu with obstetrical fistula to be operated on in Somaliland, in my hospital. Why not? That woman who is leaking could have been me. And I'm grateful that I am given that opportunity to extend an assistance to a sister, to another woman who needs help. That is what democracy is all about, ladies and gentlemen. Several other peace conferences have been held after that first one in Berbera. And the most notable ones was the conference in Burao in May 1991, when our separation from Somalia was formalized by our people. And the second major conference was the Barnaamikii Congress in 1993, when we developed the National Charter that became the blueprint for the civilian and democratic system of government that has been in place since that time in Somaliland. Now, during the Barnaamikii Congress, 500 representatives of all clans of Somaliland elected the first democratically elected president and vice president of Somaliland, our late Mohammed Haji Ibrahim Igal, my first husband, and vice president Abdurrahman Ali. Elected, not nominated, elected by Somalilanders in Somaliland through a system of conflict resolution that is a traditional way of negotiating and resolving our problems. We did it our way. That's why it works. Immediately, Somalilanders had no choice but to rise to the challenge and get on with the daunting task of rebuilding Somaliland on a self-help basis. Reconstruction took place without the benefit of a Marshall Plan. Europe was flattened during the Second World War, but you had a Marshall Plan. Look at Europe today. We didn't have the benefit of that. We don't have the benefit of loans and grants from the World Bank, from IMF. We do not enjoy or receive bilateral aid. We do it however we can with what we have. And you would be very surprised to see how little we can make things with how little we can make things happen. The Barnaamikii Congress was followed by the referendum, another great landmark. And that referendum took place in 2001 to approve the Constitution that we developed ourselves. It was not handed down to us from elsewhere. We authored it. We developed it based on our reality. And once it was finished, it was put to the population to approve it or reject it. And 97% of our people approved it. And at the same time, voters also reaffirmed their support for the country's sovereignty, which is consistent with the rights of people to self-determination as entrenched in the charters of the African Union and that of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, in December 2002, barely 11 years after we separated from Somalia, we held our first local government elections. And we held our first parliamentary elections. In April 2003, 12 years after we separated from Somalia, we held our first presidential elections, where men and women over the age of 18 had the right to vote. For the first time, our people were choosing the kind of political leaders they wished to govern the country. As a Somalilander, it makes me very proud. Now, having completed our long and difficult transition from a traditional clan-based political system to a stable multi-party democracy in Somaliland, we have held several other elections which have all been peaceful, which have all been democratic, and which have all been witnessed by international community, including the European Union. We are preparing for another free and democratic presidential election soon. We invite you to be with us. We would like you to come and witness the miracle that is Somaliland. Few recognized countries, I am sure, and definitely in Africa, can boast of such an exemplary record as that which we have in Somaliland. That is what we call democracy in practice. Less than 3 years after our separation from Somalia, Somaliland became the second African state after South Africa to achieve a general and voluntary demobilization of its militia. We demobilized our freedom fighters without international assistance and without international troops to make it happen. We spent $100,000 to achieve that total demobilization of that very powerful militia that defeated the troops of Siad Barre. $100,000. And I wonder how many billions the international community has spent in Somalia to try and achieve that. And the end is nowhere in sight. You still have terrorists in Somalia. You still have pirates. Maybe not as many as you did a couple of years ago. You still have warlords. You still have terrorism. You still have summary killings. And whatever peace is achieved in Somalia is achieved because you have 27 international troops there to maintain that peace. I wonder how much money the international community collects from its taxpayers to waste on peacekeeping efforts in Somalia when those people do not really wish to have peace because they are gaining from lawlessness. Our troops, demobilized militia, are today in our military, are part of our military. And they are the troops that are protecting us in our country, Somaliland, within our borders. We brokered our demobilization, we paid for it with our own resources, and then incorporated the demobilized militia into our national army. That army protects the ministers, protects me as a civilian, protects me as an old woman. I drive my car at midnight in the streets of Hargeisa without fear because I'm safe. I'm in Somaliland. That's what Somaliland is all about. Now, after 24 years, Somaliland is a country of hope and determination. We will not let go of our right to self-determination. We will go after it. We will plead for it. We will bring it to your courts. We will bring it to your tables because we know we have a right to have it. We have returned thousands of our refugees from refugee camps. Many who were in your countries have not returned home. When they are fleeing neighboring Somalia, our people are coming back by the thousands. Houses have been rebuilt. Hotels have been rebuilt. Hospitals have been rebuilt. Government system is in place. Law and order exists in Somaliland. The judiciary is in place. More children go to school in Somaliland today than they have ever done in the history of my country. We made it happen. And we intend to maintain it. Today we have an economy that is increasingly attracting foreign investors who wish to do business in Somaliland. We're happy to welcome anybody who wishes to do business with us. We welcome the Chinese, we welcome the French, we welcome the British, we welcome the Italians, we welcome the Indians, we welcome the Arabs, we welcome the Ethiopians, we welcome other African countries, we welcome anybody who wishes to do legitimate business with us. Not bring in contraband, not bring in fake drugs, but legitimate, licensed and fair trade to Somaliland. Somaliland is a country that is building a society founded on peace, justice, and the rule of law. And Somaliland stands neither for this cessation nor for the revision of Africa's borders. We reaffirm our commitment to the peace and stability of the region, which includes unreserved respect for the unity and territorial integrity of states. We do not believe in splintering Africa. We do not believe in breakaway states. We are living within a legitimate border that the international community defined through Anglo-French, Anglo-Italian, Anglo-Ethiopian treaties. And our demand for recognition implies full respect of the borders received at the moment of independence from Great Britain. Now, the good relations we have with neighboring states are the cornerstones of our foreign policy. And we envision a more stable, democratic, and prosperous Horn of Africa. Now, at first, our development was directed towards the reconstruction of private dwellings, shops, schools, hospitals, ports, airports, and other public property. Our system of free market economy seems to fully agree with the entrepreneurial spirit of our people, which is seen through the dramatic economic growth that exists and which has earned us the description of a rare African miracle. It makes me proud. Today we have more hospitals and more schools and more universities for our young people than we have ever had. We have better advanced telecommunications, better electronic money transfer, and far better system of governance than many, many African countries. Somaliland has mineral resources. Somaliland is strategically located. We are at the mouth of the Red Sea. We have resources like oil, like gas, like coal, and the world's largest gypsum deposit. In addition to this, we have 850 kilometers of coastline, which is rich with marine resources waiting to be exploited. The deep water port of Berbera serves as a major outlet and inlet for landlocked neighboring Ethiopia with a population of 70 million people. Berbera Airport has the longest runway in Africa. Did you know that it was built by the Russians? It was extended by the Americans to become one of the 6 landing sites for the Columbia Space Shuttle. It's in Somaliland. And if the Columbia Shuttle were to land for some reason somewhere in the Horn of Africa, it would land in Somaliland. Regretfully, even though Somaliland is a country that can be considered as a rare African success story, the former Organization of African Unity, as well as the present African Union, have spent more time and effort over Africa's failures and conflict instead of giving credit to Africa's achievements, similar to the shining example we have in Somaliland today. Undermining the achievements of Somaliland sadly also undermines democracy. Nor does it promote peace, nor does it promote stability, nor does it promote good governance in Africa. Independence and sovereignty for Somaliland is a reality with no turning back of the clock. What remains is for the international community to come to terms with that reality and to arrive at the only possible and just conclusion, that is, recognition of Somaliland as a rightful member of the world community of nations. Failing to do that, ladies and gentlemen, would be a great discredit to human rights, a great discredit to the democracy itself. It would destroy the hard-won stability that Somaliland enjoys today and would result in another mass exodus from the Horn of Africa and would scatter our people to the four corners of the world again. The people of Somaliland have made a clear choice: democracy, peace, stability, and our own identity. The question now is, will the international community respect the choice of the people of Somaliland? It is up to you, ladies and gentlemen, to make that decision. Thank you very much for your attention and for giving me this opportunity to speak about the great people of Somaliland and the great country that is Somaliland. Thank you.
I told you she was good, didn't I? Edna, that really was something very special. We've got to be preparing for I say we, Foreign Minister has to be preparing for a very important exchange of views with Foreign Affairs Committee at 5:30. What I would like to do, I would like Mohammed Dar perhaps to say a few words. So perhaps you'd like to say a few words, and then if that's okay, we'll take some questions, and perhaps I'll wrap up with my own perspective on today. Are you happy to take the floor? Okay, press the red.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to say a few words since the time is short. I will talk about the non-recognition hinders business development in my country. I'm a businessman and I've got hotels and I deal on purchase of items. We don't have any banks in Somaliland. Here you have reached the stage of where you buy things online. We are still doing business on primitive way. We look for persons, Somalilanders with foreign passports, to go and purchase for us what we want from outside. We give them a lot of money to buy a lot of goods, and it puts a risk into the person because some people think that he is money laundering. We ask them to buy for us different items. Sometimes they bring wrong items, wrong quantity, wrong value, and all these things. No warranty. Simply because we don't have a bank to open LC for ourselves. I thought I have a successful business in Somaliland for many years. This successful has not been achieved without serious obstacles put on my way by the international community's refusal to recognize my country. Because of lack of recognition, we have no banks to open letters of credit, and my simple question to this wonderful audience is, please, can anyone tell me how to do business without banking? We have no banks due to lack of recognition. Inward investors and discourages many coming to Somaliland. We look for Somalilanders who can go abroad and buy for us what we want. This is not a simple thing. Sometimes they bring the wrong material. Sometimes they bring a different quantity and different color and different value. We purchase goods from different parts of the world, and sometimes the cost is very expensive and very difficult to sell and use. Due to non-recognitions, the great impact our business is we cannot insure. We don't have insurance also. Whatever we buy, if they break outside, if they break on transportation, we can't replace it. We don't have any insurance to give us to replace our goods. We try to encourage tourism. Tourism, nobody wants to come into the country because they don't have insurance. And some people also, United Nations people, sometimes take the advantage and propagate unfound stories that the country is not safe. And nobody wants to come. As an entrepreneur, we have a problem also with passport. We cannot travel to the world and buy and see things on ourselves, simply because we are not recognized. For the last 20 years, we have built Somaliland to what it's today. It's a wonderful place, very nice place to see, and it's beautiful. The other problem is our passport. We have a lot of difficulties. As a businessman, I cannot travel to the world to see what I want or buy what I want, simply because my passport is not recognized. I'm held at the airport, and you know it, how difficult it was to come to here today. The other thing is, we want to hire skilled people from outside. Nobody wants to come to the country because it's not insured, because it's not recognized, and it's very, very difficult people to come into the country. Therefore, we have got 3 obstacles: lack of banks, insurance, passport. If we want to employ people from outside, brain people, to teach our children, to teach our employee to learn different trades, they don't want to come because the country is not recognized. And these are the 4 problems that we have to face because lack of recognition. Banking, insurance, passport, and employment. Thank you very much. That I have. I'm very sorry.
And thank you very much for those very practical comments from a successful businessman in Somaliland. And I think one thing that can come from recognition is this, just geographically, as well as the strategic importance of where Somaliland is in a troubled region. It is, by the nature, Somalilanders are traders over many thousands of years. And I'm convinced that once recognition comes in, we know from certainly the response at the conference, the development conference in London, was how countries are prepared to look at Somaliland, but they need that confidence. And it's my humble opinion that confidence, Minister, can only come from recognition. And I think once recognition does come, Somaliland will be in a position where you can actually have the upper hand, and you can be in a situation where you can best decide the people you best want to do business and help build the infrastructure of a country further. And there is this strategic geographic location of Somaliland, of course. As a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I spend much of my time talking about Islamic fundamentalism and how that has moved the whole debate of security within the European Union and the world onto a different level. And it strikes me that Somaliland, as a pro-Western, moderate, Sunni Muslim country, should be the right country to hold up as a beacon of hope, not just for the region, but for the Horn of Africa. Because it's my contention and my genuine belief that when Somaliland, and I say when because it will happen, believe you me, it will happen, when Somaliland finally gets that well-deserved re-recognition, because let's remember, it's not about recognition. She has been recognised before, in 1960. It's re-recognition. And I think when that re-recognition comes, I think it'll be a huge step forward in security within the region. So I take a lot of positivity from today. So it's nice to meet old friends and new friends. and I can assure you that I will be using my position, and I know, speaking from colleagues, and I'm pleased to have Peter here from the Swedish delegation within our group, and of course both the United Kingdom and Sweden share a huge diaspora of Somalilanders, and I look forward to working alongside other parliamentarians and other parliamentary groups. And to that end, I'm going to be in the Foreign Affairs Committee meeting today. I'm going to be launching an initiative where I seek to launch a friendship group within the European Parliament. I already have support from a member of the ECR group. Charles Tannock has very kindly come on board and offered to be a vice president. Mohammed Dar is helping with regards. I have ideas for a possible EPP member, but that's not confirmed yet. But what I do need, I need membership from people across all party groups, because I think what we mustn't do is pay lip service here and say, oh, aren't we nice people, and put our arms around you and say, keep up the good work, chats, let's make this work, because I think actions speak far louder than words. And I look forward to continuing to fly the flag for a free and independent United Kingdom, and also for a free and independent Somaliland. So, ladies and gentlemen, if anybody, I'm going to sit down, but if anybody has any questions that they'd perhaps like to address to any of the ministers or to me, please feel free to ask. Thank you.
It's just a quick observation more than anything else. It's always inspiring. Jim's told me a little bit about the work that he's done with you. I'm his colleague in the West Midlands and we work closely together. This is the first time for me, and it's always inspiring to see people who are so passionate about freedom and about democracy and about striving to better themselves and their people, and it's a real honour and a pleasure to have heard you speak today. And Jim's doing fine work on behalf of all of us in UKIP on this, and it really is inspiring to see people with such passion for freedom. So God bless you, well done, thank you.
David.
I'm Jim's colleague from Scotland, and I can tell you that what inspires me most is to see you guys have done it yourselves. You've got off your backsides, you've done it yourselves. So many people these days just expect other people to do things for them, but you have set an example to everybody else and shown what people in Africa can do if they're not interfered with by foreign forces. And I take my hat off to you. I think you've done a wonderful job, and I'll do whatever I can to help Jim with this affair.
Can I just add a little bit to Abdul Qadir's story about his passport and getting into Belgium? Is there anybody from Belgium here? I had dealings with the Belgian Interior Ministry yesterday, and the borders of Europe are entirely porous. I mean, basically, if you want to walk across the border between Moldova and Romania, you can do it, and nobody's going to ask you for any papers or anything like that. The hoops through which this fine, distinguished gentleman had to jump in order to get a visa to get into Brussels yesterday evening, and I'm sure he was probably thoroughly tired by the time all the process had been going, was demeaning and humiliating in the extreme. I spoke to a representative of the Belgian Interior Ministry yesterday who in a sneering voice said, well, why does this old man want to come to Belgium anyway? That is the sort of attitude that I want to kick very hard, and I think everybody in UKIP wishes to do that. It was something that made me so cross that if he'd been in the building, I should have gone round and done something to him.
Can I just add to that? Obviously, with regards to Abdul's problem we had yesterday, but something you spoke about, this old man. But what inspires me, but coming out of the conference in London, was the belief in the diaspora, in the Somalilanders living, certainly in the United Kingdom, who have such belief in Somaliland, and so much so, for those of you who won't know, but a lot of the investments into Somaliland is coming from Somalilanders living in the diaspora. And I think that's so encouraging, because you're very proud of that link. You're very proud people, Somalilanders, and I really do believe that your country will be a great success because of the belief and the action speaking louder than words. And it's a credit to successive Somaliland governments how you've managed to engage with your diaspora and make them feel such an important part in the future success of an independent Somaliland.
Stuart.
Jim, I did just ask before lunch, but there hasn't been a chance for an answer yet, about the Organisation of African Unity, who, ever since they were set up, have always said the boundaries of African countries are sacrosanct. Is this thing reverberating?
I think it is, yeah.
Have always said that the boundaries of African countries are sacrosanct, even if they were drawn by Europeans. Despite this, they have agreed, acknowledged, recognised South Sudan as a separate entity to the remainder of Sudan. Why are they behaving in the way they are about Somaliland? It isn't logical. So what is the reason for it?
My contention is that South Sudan was a particular pet project of former President George Bush. I don't wish to disrespect South Sudan in any way, shape or form, but I feel on paper, if you look at the cause of self-determination, recognition or re-recognition for Somaliland, it on paper and in practice it was a far better cause than that of South Sudan, but it goes back to that old word, diplomacy, and I'm sure Edmund would like to speak on that, but I feel perhaps as Britain rediscovers her place in a wider world as a genuine global power, free from the shackles of the European Union, if not already, Somaliland's recognition would perhaps be higher on the agenda as Britain seeks to regain some influence on the continent of Africa. Edna?
Yeah. I think, well, that's an excellent question. But my impression is when South Sudan and Sudan negotiated or debated or arranged for a separation, there were two entities. There was a country called Sudan, and there were people who were organized in South Sudan. In Somaliland, we have lost that opportunity because we do not have a partner with whom we can dialogue. Somalia was destroyed in 1991. And there is nobody in Somalia who represents former Italian Somalia, who can speak for them, and with whom we can talk sense. It was groups of warlords, groups of terrorists, groups of pirates, groups who did not represent the rest of the country. We have become political orphans or political widows because we have no partner with whom we can dialogue or agree with or disagree with. And the current president who is nominated was from among 200 members of parliament. He does not represent the country. He does not run the country. He does not govern the country. The African Union troops do. So the other reason, of course, is that during the 10 years of civil war we had with the troops of Somalia, Somalia occupied all the diplomatic missions throughout the world and labeled us dissidents, separatists, people who wish to break up the country, spread that bad reputation about us, which has remained stuck in the minds of the international community. And we would like people to come out and do some fact-finding. We are neither a splinter nor a fragment. We are, in fact, a whole unit that is intact. It is neighboring Somalia that has become fragmented. I think they have, 8 governments now within Somalia. Kismayo, Bosaso, Garowe, Galkayo, Baydhabo, It's like the stock market. You need to see every day what's up, what's down, how many governments Somalia has. We have no partner with whom we can agree or disagree with. That's why we need the international community to come and mediate and to come and be on the side of justice. We do not want anything that does not belong to us. But we do very much want what belongs to us, our legitimate identity. Thank you.
Let me just add on the issue of South Sudan and Sudan. I happened to be in Sudan at the time as a UN senior officer. And of course, what's known as the CPA, which is the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that has been made between Sudan and South Sudan, was, as Jim said, was an American project. America had an interest in seeing South Sudan succeed and separate from Sudan at the time, of course for many reasons, and in fact the international community as a whole sort of supported that project because it's being spearheaded by the US as a superpower, and they really wanted to see that separation through religious grounds and oil and other reasons. And I think it was the influence of the US at the time that had created South Sudan. And of course, South Sudan has already lasted long. I mean, of course, they got their independence in 2011. They have stayed there for a year. And of course, as you all know today, there's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of problems. South Sudan was not actually prepared, unlike Somaliland, to be in a position of a statehood. I mean, Somaliland has done things on its own now for the last 25 years. We have gone through the whole process that Dr. Edna has mentioned it to you, the way, the reconciliation, the tribal leaders, the structure that we have, the parliamentarian process, the elections and the rest. And of course, we have now prepared ourselves to be ready for a government. Of course, Somaliland is different, as Dr. Edna was saying this morning, and the legal advisor was also saying, Michael was saying, because Somaliland was an independent state in the past. Unlike South Sudan. South Sudan and Sudan were together. They had their own borders in 1956. There is still a problem on the borders and the demarcation of the borders. And actually, as a UNICEF, we're very much engaged to sort of separate and see even what's known now as Abyei is still not resolved. In fact, there are 4,000 Ethiopian troops right now in Abyei because we could not solve the issue of the border between South Sudan and North Sudan. And that's why we have those borders in Abyei, because the demarcation lines are not yet known. Unlike Somaliland, where you have clear borders, clear distinction between the two nations, between the Italian part and the British part. But I think the support of the EU members and the EU Parliament is really needed to fight for justice and for Somaliland to regain its re-recognition, as you said, because we have been recognized in the past. We have been a state that has been accepted by the United Nations, by 35 member states. We have been a member of the United Nations at the time, of course, for a week or so. And as was being said by Dr. Edna now, of course, that act of union, as you have said, Michael, this morning, there's no act of union. And in fact, there was no marriage to start with. And I think it's really important for people like you who are in a position to defend justice and democracy and the rule of law and the human rights to speak out and defend the interests of Somaliland so that we could be part and parcel of the international community. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Minister?
I was just wondering if I can answer the questions, the previous questions you asked about agriculture and water
yes, thank you.
and the UK party. Okay. Well, you showed concern about us once we are recognized sending embassies everywhere. I can assure you that won't happen. We won't be wasting our poor taxpayers' money, setting up shops where we don't need that. With regard to the three parties, because I said we have, our constitution says that we must have just three parties, not 4 or 5 or more than that. And you said under that law, the UK party wouldn't have a chance. Well, every 10 years, we open the political space. We have 3 official parties in between, but every 10 years, we open the political space. So anybody can come in and set up, a party of whatever nature. So all cause not lost. There is still a chance. With regard to the water, you mentioned the water. It's true we cannot meet our need for water from boreholes and shallow wells or from aquifers. We need to harvest water, and as you rightly noticed, 350 millimeters is not a whole lot of water, in terms of precipitation. However, that's the average. We have areas that receive up to 500 millimeters a year, and areas which receive only 50 millimeters a year. So we can, reasonably grow crops in the areas that receive higher rainfall. But there is a possibility to grow crops under irrigation. So we believe up to 3% of our land, even though it's arid land, is arable land. We can grow things in about 3%, which translates into maybe 300 to 400,000 hectares, which we think we will be able to produce at least half of our food needs, from. But we need investment, we need technology, we need to go from subsistence farming to commercial farming, and for that we need investment from the international community, of course, which requires recognition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Unless anybody has anything, well, please, I'll take your question.
No, I don't have a question, but from the Swedish delegation, I would like to say to all of you from the delegation from Somaliland, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to listen to you and what you did have to say about your country. It was very interesting. I learned a lot of things I actually didn't know today, and it will be a true pleasure to give Jim and all of you the help that is possible to give you, of course. So by that, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, well, I don't think that, do we? Unless there's any other pressing questions, Europol TV have got an interview with the ministers and myself shortly, so we'd like to head down and do that. If anybody has any other pressing issues, but I'd just like to say a big thank you to all my colleagues and any other interested parties for your support and interest. I'd like to say a big thank you to the Somalilanders who have come over with the ministers. I'd like to say a big thank you to Ali, the Somaliland ambassador in the UK, and to Abdul and to Mohammed as well for your unending support for this worthy cause, and all your help and assistance that you have been giving us over the past months since my election, and indeed for the wider cause. And of course, a big thank you for Foreign Minister, Planning Minister Edna, and thank you too for all your help, because as well as the support from Michael and Liam, I've got to say thank you to Neil and to Steve for all your help, and I'm sure this can be the start of something good. So best of luck in your endeavours tomorrow in this place. I hope you get on far better than the UKIP delegation normally get on. I'm sure that you will, with your charm and with the attention to detail that you've all shown today. I'm sure only good things can come from this. Thank you very much.